the shaila that the Maim is answering now is like this. In light of all of the above that we learned earlier, namely the two levels within man, in other words, the two levels, there's lechem in Hashemayim and lechem in the Oretz within the manna itself. And that's akin to Chachma and Bina. As we distinguish between these two longings, they both induce a love. So the first one is, or the lower one is, I want more. There is understanding. And so that creates the appetite for a full and richer understanding. And the higher longing is not I want more, but less, as it were, that he wants to be less. It induces bittul. Ava on the one hand, bittul on the other. You want to be there is a longing, but at the same time, you want to dissolve there. You don't want to be apparent there. You don't want to mar the truth. So this is within Pnimius HaTorah itself. As he said earlier, the lower level is the study of Pnimius HaTorah for the purpose of self-refinement, engagement. Yiddishkeit is beautiful. You should want it and want more of it. The higher one is the limud Chassidus, is learning Chassidus, the flow of the Ein Sof, learning about God beyond Creator. And that induces complete bittul of creation. As was explained earlier at greater length. So having said all of that, he connected it with the statement in the Shabbos. This is about Shabbos in the Zohar. That's all connected to Shabbos because the manna is rooted, as we learned in the previous Maimah, in Shabbos, but doesn't fall on Shabbos. So the Zohar says, right, we're just reviewing the last 2 days now. What does the Zohar say? There's the commentary of the Zohar, there's the commentary of Rabbi Leivik on the Zohar, the Rebbe's question on Rabbi Leivik, on the commentary. And then in light of all the above, it's clear. That's what we learned yesterday, the day before. So to review that, what does it say in the Zohar? The Zohar says on the pasuk, in reference to the man, what's the pasuk? So help me here. What's the pasuk that the Zohar is based on? VaYarivecha Daled. No, someone say? Yeah, right. See that the Eibishter gave to you Shabbos, explaining why no manna fell on the Shabbos and the double portion fell on Friday. Then that's what this is in pasuk. Then the Zohar brings the Chizkiah who said, who made a comment that seems completely unrelated to the pasuk under discussion. He brings another pasuk, a pasuk from Tilim, Capital Kuf Lamed. What does the pasuk say? Right, the second line, Shir HaMa'alos, the Song of Ascents, Mima'amakim, from the depths. What are the depths in the plural? Umka de kula v'umka de beira, the depth of everything and the depth of the well or the spring. The Zohar goes on to say, and from there, everything is blessed. The spring flows and everything is blessed. The implication being that Shabbos blesses all the days of the week, or is a source of blessing. But what are these two depths? What's the two depths associated with Shabbos? What does the Rabbi Leivik say? Help me here. The two depths of Umka de Kula of Umka de Beira. It's right at the beginning of his Daled. Anyone? It's right there. Chachma and Bina. We explained yesterday why Chachma is called de kula, the depth of everything. Why? Even not based on what you said yesterday, just from your own knowledge. Why is chachma the depth of everything? Pashat, just ABC, what?
It's the source of anything.
Yeah, it's chachma is the source of ishtalshelus, the beginning of ishtalshelus. The analogy or the parallel, the nefesh adam, is the birth of an idea that then goes to all the stages of seichel and midas and then maisa. Yeah. So it's the depth of everything. It's the source of everything. And bin is called de beira, the depth of the well. Perhaps the implication being here, the well as you dig deep. So bin, you develop the idea. It's not just to its depth, mind you. An idea has how many directions? This 6 directions. An idea has 6 directions. Every idea, it's a true idea. It's a novel idea. Idea that we say an idea. You don't just mean I don't know what, but we speak about an idea. Chassidus, we're talking about a novel insight about reality. So the 6 directions correspond to the 6 midas is the height of an idea, the depth of an idea, and then there's the 4 directions of an idea: forward, backwards, right, left. At any rate, so I'm just saying that the beira, the depth of the well, is the union of bina. Okay, so all to say that what? That what happens on Shabbos? So what happens on Shabbos? So Shabbos is this level, mimamakim. That's what Tabchizki is saying. Shabbos contains these 2 depths. Shabbos is the union of bina, and invested in bina. That's a fact. He just lays that down. Shabbos is bina. The connection is tainug. Bina is tainug. So Shabbos is bina, and invested in bina is chachma. The 2 are inseparable. So from chachma and bina, which is Shabbos, from there comes the bracha to all the 6 days of the week. Yeah. In the words of the Zohar, in the brackets by the number 36, mibuyin from the well or the spring, nafkin v'nogdin lebracha kula. From there goes out and is drawn as nimshach bracha for everything. So Shabbos is the source of blessing. It's just simply what it's saying. Shabbos is the source of blessing. In particular, what's the level? The level is Chachma Bina. Where's it drawn Chachma Bina into the midas? So far, so good. The Vov Ksovas, that's the 6 directions I just mentioned a moment ago. The 6 directions in Seichel, which then give birth to the 6 midas. But then comes a problem. Why? Because the Rabbi, this is Rabbi's comment. Rabbi is explaining the de kula and de beira. And then he adds, what does he add? On Mamshech Balil, it's the bottom of page Kuf Tzadik. He had something else. This is also the meaning of what? What's the pasuk he quotes? Second line there from the bottom. And what does he say? No, Rabbi, you can just read it. Yeah, no. So I'm telling you the second line on the page of Kuf Tzadik. V'karasa l'Shabbos oineg, and he says that oineg is what? Ayin nun gimel. It's what?
Eiden Nahar
Gam. He's saying Zeh, and this is the same inyan. This is what Shabbos is oineg, and oineg is Eiden Nahar Gam, and he teaches what these levels are. Eiden and Nahar is what? Eiden is the river flows out of Eden. How does the pasuk continue? Lahashkish Sagon, to water the garden, and then it goes on to say what? Misham Yipodet, and there it splits to 4. What's that? The 4 rivers are a reference to the Daladoilimus. This is a cryptic description of all the Stanshamas, of the Nahar, the river flowing out of Eden. So 8, and he says, is what is Chachma. Nor is Bina, and what's Gan? What's the garden? That's the Golad the Bet. We said till now, so far so good. Zeho, he's matching it up. We're talking about the Rukin Osan Lachem HaShabbos, Mamakim, the 2 depths, Chachma Bina, flowing out of there to nourish the Midas. So far so good. But then he says, but it's the union of Gan. And where's this all drawn to? Gan. Now what's the garden reference to? Malchus. And he adds more detail. And Malchus is associated with Shabbos. Where do we see that? Just Bechlal. The whole Shabbos is the feminine day. Malcolm, Lava Malka, Kala. She starts off Shabbos as a Kala and then ends as a queen. Right? How do we see what's the connection between? You tell me, what's the connection between what he says with Zeho? The word Shabbos expresses this union of Einig that he just defined. How so? Second line, go Tzadik, I'll look at it and tell me. How is this with Zeho, this final point, Einig? That Shabbos is, before we get to the question, what is Malchus come? We're talking about the Midas before. That's the question he's going to ask. But now, how does he touch here? That Shabbos, the word Shabbos conveys what we just said now. How so? So Shin is Begematria what? Ma'amakim. That's the 2 depths of Chachma Bina. And then the next 2 letters? Which is what? Bas, daughter. Why is daughter Malchus? Pashat. Feminine, recipient of the father's not benevolence, in other words, provision. Ashpa, yeah, there's a word in English. At any rate, so Shabbos is Shin, Gematria Ma'amakim, Bas, Malchus. The Rebbe's question, he said, V'zeho, introducing this whole union of Einig, of Eden, Nohar, and Gan, Chachma, Bina, and Malchus. But you just finished saying that what's Ma'amakim, Chachma, and Bina. Okay, that's so far, that matches. But you said before, where does it flow? What happens on Shabbos? That it flows into the Midas. And now, that's just a huge kasha, but and now you're saying that the whole union of Shabbos is not the flow into the Midas, but the Ashba into Malchus.
The whole point of the Midas is to get to Malchus.
The whole point of the Midas is to get to Malchus. So you could answer that. We'll see what the Maimon answers. So let's begin. Rabbi was there. He's kind of saying that. Let's see the answer again. Let's on the beard. In Avodas Adam, tying it in, and now tying all of this in to the 2 levels of manna, of lechem in hashamayim, that he said before, I kinta chachma and bina, av and bittel. We're clear? Should I make a David? I should make a graph of all this, like a map. Would that be a good idea? I see there's only a DP there, so we don't know if David is there or not. I guess we will. Now that's going to help. It always helps. Just the geography to match up the dargis and things he's talking about. So what's the question we have to answer now? Just a simple question. He starts off saying that Shabbos is one union and Kluta Shabbos is another union. He starts off saying Shabbos is Amshach of Chachma Bina in Zoh, in the Midas. And then he concludes, V'zeh Einig, Shabbos is Amshach of Chachma Bina of Eden and Nohar, where into Gan, into Bas, into Malchus. So now to answer that in Avodah. Shema'amakim lo Rabbi, again, Mamakim in the plural correspond to the two levels he's speaking about before, the two Shnei Yinyonim Anal Shebemeichel Reiven, the two levels of hunger that the study of Pnimius HaTorah induces. There's the Beir of Bina, there's the Bina, the depth of Bina. So who hayidiyah shepe'eles Reiven, this is a knowledge that affects hunger. Why does it affect hunger? Again, because there is some understanding. There is some understanding. We're learning about the Svidis and the Midas and the Malachim. There's a parallel, B'nefesh Adam. And we have lots of words and explanations and parallels and illustrations and Misholim. At the end of the day, we don't have the idea of Samahus, but what? Experience it. We're learning about it all, but I want to experience it, so it induces that hunger, a longing for it, as you said before. That's one yin of Oimek. And then there's Va'umka, the Kula, Chachma. That's a higher longing, not a longing of Ava, I want to be close and I want to feel, but it's a bittul. Of course he wants to be there, but he wants to be there in the way of bittul. This is Kodesh HaKadoshim. We mentioned many times, this very insightful, if you haven't heard it, it's worth hearing. And if you did hear it, it's worth hearing again. Very insightful beard of Manas. So what could possibly have been the improper thought of a Kohen Gadol in Kodesh HaKadoshim? That towards the end of the second Beis Hamikdash, they all died. Either immediately within a year. That's what was called the Parhedrin, the name of the chamber where they stayed, which was originally called Lishkas Ha'etz because it was wood, but covered over with plaster. They changed it and called it Parhedrin. Parhedrin means the king's god. It's a Greek word. It was like a sarcastic comment, like the king would remove those close to him, constantly change them. No one should get too comfortable there. So there's a big turnover of Kahanim Gedolim. So in the Mishnah, we find it's called Lishkas Parhedrin. How beautiful of the Rebbe, though. So why are we using that term to describe the Kodesh HaKadoshim? Not every Kohen Gadol was corrupt. I mean, and sarcasm has no place. A wry comment. I mean, it has its place, but as a wry comment does have its place, but it's enshrined in the Mishnah Parhedrin forever. And not every Kohen Gadol was died. Explains, but Pnimius it is a new Kohen Gadol every year, because that's the power of Yom Kippur. You follow? The power of Yom Kippur is complete transformation, even of the Kedusha. So, but Pnimius Parhedrin, it's a new Kohen Gadol. If it's the same guy at 80 years, but he's a new person each year. So that name has profoundly virtuous. Okay, that's the general sikha, but just going back a little bit. Why did they die? Those who were corrupt because they had an improper thought. So the shaila is, I mean, how righteous do you have to be? It's Yom Kippur. You know what happened to the guy last year? That you can't keep a clean mind for 5 minutes. The whole thing was a few minutes. And he was so busy. It was a very difficult avodah to bring in the ketores, and he had to use either his teeth or he had to use his elbow to get the ketores. He has to get the ketores in the ladle into his hand himself. And it's a double portion. One of the most difficult avodas. It requires all your concentration. Either he turned the ladle with his teeth, emptied it, or he was able to manipulate it under his arm and get, in following, the ketores at the end of the golden ladle into his hands that he poured onto the fire pan he's holding in his other hand. Puts the fire pan down, but then it has to put the incense into the ketores into his two hands. I'm just saying it's one of the most difficult avodas. I just, how they could possibly do it. They trained before that. And you're there for a few minutes. And you know, Eini Kol Yisrael Alecha. Everybody's looking at you. In your Kodesh HaKadoshim, it's incomprehensible. They'll have an improper thought. And you're going to think then of a off-color joke or what? You don't talk about any madregas. You're in Kodesh HaKadoshim. And you know what happened to the guy last year? What's the improper thought? I earned it. I earned it. That's the opposite of the bittul we're talking about here. Yes, longing to be there, but not longing there, fill me. but longing to be there in the way of bittul, in a transparent way, in silence. That was the improper thought. It's made it the insight. You heard it before. We say it many times. You all heard it before, right? Okay, so it's worth.
Heard it from you, not from him.
What?
I heard it from him, I've heard it from you.
Not from Rabbi Manas, you heard it from me.
Who's Reb Manas? We heard it as Manas. Now it became a Reb Manas. It's a new Manas every year.
Why not? If you quote such a word, you can call him Reb Manas. He deserves Reb Manas.
You're right. Zalman Shimon wasn't even called Reb Zalman Shimon.
I hope you didn't call him Zalman Shimon to his face. And even today, we call him Reb Zalman Shimon. It's just not. I told you a story with the bocher that came to collecting for Timchet Mimim to Rabbi's house and asked the Rebbe Sanchana, there's ganze Meis, is Levikin. Levik, it's called Levik Zalman Shimon. It's ganze Meis. Many years later by the Rebbe and asking for forgiveness. I told the story. I'll call upon him. Same thing, Yerl. I mean, Rebbe Yerl, it doesn't just roll off the tongue, Yerl. Hello, who are you? It's Rebbe Yerl. He called himself that, and he's known this way, you know, but still. I'll call upon him. Not a big. So, answer. So, what's the answer? Answer to what? We know the question. Okay, in Avedis Adam, the beer to why Rabbi says that on the one hand, Shabbos is the Amshacha in the Midas, and he says, V'zeh, the Amshacha in Malchus. Because in the Michael, in the Mon, there's two kinds of hunger. The hunger of Birabina, who are. So this is a knowledge that engenders hunger. Because you have knowledge, you want more. You want to really experience it at what you're learning about. It's tantalizing. And then there's Umka the Kula Chachma, who are Shehiraiven be'etzem legabe ha'adam. Not sure exactly the Taich exactly what the word says he means it, but Raiven be'etzem means not. It could be the pshat is this. The first Raiven is satisfied. When you get the gilu, you're satisfied. When you get the experience, you'll be satisfied. Oh, that's what's happening in Gan Eden. So that longing we have only in Elam Hazeh, then get satisfied in Elam Abriya, in Elam Haitzir, Gan Eden Atach, Gan Eden Elyon. But this is a Raiven be'etzem that can never be satisfied because it's bittul. It's the forever longing, the forever pining for deeper and deeper bittul. Raiven be'etzem. There's no threshold. Got it? Thanks. I'm good now. Basking in the pleasure, in the moment. Don't disturb me, please. I'm having a good time. In Kodesh HaKadoshim, it's a Raiven be'etzem. It's forever longing. As long as he has consciousness, as long as he's in Metzias, there's the longing to dissolve less, that the truth be revealed. That's be'etzem. So now he's going to say, so Rabbi Levi is talking about Shabbos being nimshach where? Both into Zoh and into Malchus. That's because we're talking about the two levels of man. This is the answer. V'zeh, because that's manna, there's two inyonim, there's two dargis. There's that which engenders a hunger that's potentially satisfied. Ava, you love, you want to be close, you want to feel, you get close, you feel good, you fulfill. Bittul, When the longing, the Raven is bittul, there's no satisfying. So now that we said that, now we'll understand what Rabbi talks about, what? Zoh and Malchus, as being the recipients of the Hamshacha Atzmi, which is what? As we learned in the previous Maamar, what is being Nimshech on Shabbos? The Eibishter's essential tainig in us. That's what's revealed on Shabbos and be revealed Lasid Lovei, but revealed every Shabbos. God's essential desire for us. So, these two levels of man that come from Shabbos. Inside, good morning, Ari. We're going to begin soon. So let's just read inside a little bit. What are the two inyanim? Shnei inyanim de Zoh Malchus. Everything is relative. Zoh and Malchus same state. Dargis b'seichelot. It's all his bonus, right? This is lechem in Hashemayim. This is learning Pnimiyas HaTorah. So in learning Pnimiyas HaTorah, there's the Zoh level, the transcendent level, and the Malchus level. This is all parallels that we learned earlier. Right? Malchus is the lower level learning Chassidus, the beauty of Yiddishkeit, the beauty, the understanding. And that's the Zoh, which is relatively the transcendent level within Seichel. So that's the two levels which correspond to general Chachma and Bina. Are we following? Relatively transcendent, immanent. To make it simpler, looking up or looking down. Chachma is looking up, and Bina is looking down. That's the Beira, the application, the internalization, what it means for me, the feeling, the understanding, looking down into self, into the world. That's where you're bringing all this. And Chachma is looking up. Clear? And that's Zoh and Malchus, relatively speaking. Zoh is the Pnimis, the transcendent part of the person. Malchus is the way you engage the world. It's actions, words, it's all relative. What we're saying now is Chachma, relatively speaking, is like Zoh, and Bina like Malchus. The whole, friends, the whole Ishtalshus is based on this binary system of yes and no, transcendence and immanence. It's throughout in all these relative and different guises and forms. Oir, Keli, Gvul, Bli Gvul. It's rooted in all of this. So this model repeats endlessly in different guises and forms. Infinite, finite, transcendent, immanent. Immanent as in present, transcendent as in beyond. Okay, so we'll revisit that again. Today's story